Hello everyone, welcome to this Englicious secondary video tutorial. As the title says, this video is going to focus on activities and resources which are especially for secondary school age students. If you haven't seen the primary video, it might be worth taking a quick look at that first, since in that video we cover some of the functionality of the website, like how to look for resources and how to use the glossary. So in this video, we're going to jump straight in and start looking at several different types of resources that would be useful for secondary school age students. You'll notice that the primary school activities are more focused on the grammar subject knowledge, and at secondary level we're starting to move more towards looking at the effects which are created and allowing students to use criteria to work out the word class of what they're looking at. So we'll go into the resources page as usual, and this time on the right hand menu we're going to select secondary, and today we'll just look at a few starters and lessons. And now you can see at the top of the page the things we've selected are appearing as tags, and that's all we'll see in the menu. First lesson we'll look at is about compound word creation, and just like any activity or lesson on the Englicious page, the first thing you'll see is a page of instructions telling the teacher how to make use of the activity. You can look at those instructions in your own time, but here's the activity, and this is a mix and match activity where we're creating compound nouns by pulling together these two cards. Give me a clue button will complete one of them for you if you're stuck. You drag them together, double click to take them apart, and once you've completed, submit your answers, and by scrolling down we can see because we had the help we don't get full marks. So try again, and this generates new examples, different words, different compound nouns that can be made, and we can keep doing this with our class on an interactive whiteboard. Next we have another mix and match activity, but this time it's about noun identification. This is something to be done with the whole class and have the interactive whiteboard and have students moving where they think the words belong. And this isn't based on one simple definition, but several grammatical criteria, such as can it take an article of the possessive, as students are working out for themselves, do these words fit the category, and therefore do I know if they're nouns or not. Another mix and match activity related to nouns, this time is color coded, and now we're experimenting with suffixes to add on to the nouns to change the meaning. There's a number of things you could do with this. You can see how many suffixes one noun can take and how that makes different types of nouns describing an action or a person. You could also look at which suffixes don't usually go with certain nouns, but could you coin or create a new word? And this is something you'll see very commonly when brands are creating a new product and they need to create a new unique name. Can you create something, your students create something similar and think, what might that product do? Next, we have a sentence generator, and here we're looking at the main clause, adverbials, and subordinate clause. And for this one, we're going to take a look at this, how it would appear using the whiteboard button at the top of the screen. So that turns the activity into slides. We're going to have a look at the last slide because there's two ways we can play around with all these different parts of the sentence. We can mix and match different sentences which make sense together. So I played computer games with my friends secretly to impress everybody. You can have some fun making some silly, nonsensical, hilarious sentences. But also the important point is to think about the order of that sentence. So we have the notorious fronted adverbial. We could even put a subordinate clause in front of the main clause and think about why we're making those choices. What do we want to prioritize? What do we want the reader to notice first? What should really grab their attention at the start of the sentence? And how does that move along the structure of the rest of the sentence? So lots to manipulate. Now another activity to spark some discussion, this time looking at modes and registers. We have a selection of short texts, and then for each text we have a number of sliders which through discussion with the class you can decide how planned or unplanned is this text. Is it standard or non-standard, formal or informal? distant or friendly, and often students see these things as completely either or, when in fact there is a sliding scale, and there is some discussion as to what extent these texts fulfill these different criteria. And again, we're thinking about what's the purpose of our writing, what's the context, what do we want to achieve, and then how does that have an impact on the linguistic and grammatical choices we make. In this activity, again, we're thinking about how to manipulate language and why we might do that. So we have example sentences with adjectives, and we're transforming those adjectives into nouns. So Jeff is shy, we could change into I didn't notice Jeff's shyness, and you just click the answer button to reveal the answer. So it's quite a straightforward activity, but this is a really useful thing to introduce nominalization and think, what choices do we have when we're crafting a sentence? What's the different effects of using the adjective or using the noun? You could even say it's a useful way to reduce a word count if you're going over, since we are shortening the sentences here. But more importantly, what's the effect of using warmth instead of warm in that sentence on the tone of the writing? Another similar activity, but this time we're talking about voice. So we're going from the passive voice to the active voice. So this shouldn't simply be about how to write in the active and the passive, but looking at these two sentences that we're generating and thinking, what is the effect of using the active voice and the passive voice, and how does inverting the syntax change the emphasis of the meaning of the sentence? We're on to the last couple of activities now, and these last activities put more emphasis on the students being creative and manipulating language. So here we have a selection of subordinate clauses. I think this could make an interesting warmer or something to do in form time. Ask your students to select 3 or 5, write 3 or 5 sentences. Could you create a piece of non-fiction writing, a short story? And it's sort of an exquisite corpse type activity where we've all been supplied with the same subordinate clauses, but we'll generate all sorts of different types of stories. Something quite similar here about expanding headlines. So newspaper headlines, obviously because of limited space, are not always fully grammatical. So can we draw out and turn these into fully grammatical sentences? So lorry driver cut free after crash. What's missing from that sentence? And if you look back at the lesson plan, you'll see that some of these activities, examples have been provided. So again, it's putting the onus on the students to start applying and using the different grammatical structures they know. And it's not about a right or wrong answers necessarily, it's what meaning is being conveyed and what emphasis do you want to put. That's about the end of this video. There are hundreds, really hundreds more resources on the Englicious website, so please take the time to explore, look around, see what you can incorporate into your lesson plans and schemes of work. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and we have lots of other resources, CPD, which we're doing online this summer. Please follow us on Twitter, and thank you for watching.